Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone. This is Dr. Bairavee Balasubramaniam PhD, the Sky Priestess. So, now I realize I did not give you a lot of warning and time before Spirit decided to tell me, okay, Bairavee, you're going to just dissolve everything you've been working on for the past 7 years through your Facebook platform, and you're going to need to take a lot more time for yourself. When these messages hit, they just hit. There's no real warning that's given, which I can understand is raising a lot of questions in a lot of you who were kind of expecting me to give some guidance. In response to that, I'm going to be doing something very special for all of you. Just as a one-off, I would like to share with you what I'm going to be sharing with the Tier 23 members for the next 7-day periods, between actually 8 days if you include today. So for the time period between the 8th to the 15th of March, I'm going to be sharing with you part one of what Tier 23 members would get. Now, part 2 is where we get into the more esoteric astrological bodies like Therius, Hylanome, Psyche, Boracisi, Vesta, which is not that esoteric anymore, but we look at her in an esoteric way and we just go into the various layers. This is very, very much a focus on the basic first level of astrological detail that I would normally share as part of the Tier 23 program. And I really did not want to leave you in a lurch, so I'm sharing this for 2 reasons. One, to give you the guidance that you need, because this is a critical time for a lot of people, and 2, to give you a flavor of what Tier 23 is about. Now, you can find out details on Tier 23 on the link that I'm going to put in the description box. So, that's fine. You can look into that and see if you are able to subscribe to it, if the level of energetic intensity and detail appeals to you. And for those of you who either don't have the budget or just don't need that level of detail, you may just want to consider becoming a limited tier subscriber, which is also information that I'll be providing. And there you'll just get a real snippet or nugget of information, condensing everything that I have said. So it really comes down to what your energetic investment is in engaging with the astrology and the deeper spiritual meaning of the work and the budget that you have to do it. So as you will be able to tell from this 1 week overview, Tier 23 is very, 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 very hardcore. And it takes a lot of energy to do and also a lot of energy to receive. So without further ado, and a big hello to my usual Tier 23 group, let's get into it. So just so you know, the time zones that I work with are universal time. So you are going to need to find a converter to see how that tallies to your specific time zone. I choose universal time because that is the closest approximation that I can make to neutrality. I don't want to privilege one spot over another spot or another spot. And I'm familiar with the controversy behind calling it universal time, but it's the closest that we got. Starting off with the 8th of March, we see at 12:22 p.m. the Sun conjuncting Neptune at 18 degrees Pisces. Truthfully, as I have explained in previous Tier 23 installations, this is actually part of an ongoing yod. A yod is also known as a finger of fate that accelerates our karmic experiences and gives us more of an opportunity to break through out of karmic patterns or to actually get further entrenched in them if we are not careful with our choices. So the Sun-Neptune conjunction is powering this yod, which also involves Palisasena in Capricorn and Therius in Leo as the apex of the yod. So this is really where at a spiritual level we are being asked to draw upon our inner reserves to look at the kinds of strategies that we need to take in a practical sense in response to deeply seated fears that can come up. It could be through past lives, childhood experiences that surround sexual abuse specifically. This is really where we have got to meet the trauma with real informed, practical and grounded responses. So trying to handle this yod by yourself is not a good idea if you're already in a highly triggered state. Seek out people who have the qualification, the expertise and the insight to help you navigate in a safe and grounded way. Some of you may be making big breakthroughs surrounding your own soul journeys and life experiences surrounding the role of abuse in your lives and the role of predation, and others may be actually finding these themes coming back in an overwhelming fashion. Again, it really depends on where you are and the work that you have done so far on yourself. There's no judgment here. It's just dependent on really where you are. And as you can see in tier 23, I do not make easy generalizations. This is why this program is for people who are really willing to do the work, introspect, and be honest with themselves. They are those who make the most progress, I would say. Also on the 8th of March, we see the mean north node at 4 degrees Cancer squaring Black Moon Lilith at 4 degrees Aries. This also means that Black Moon Lilith is squaring the mean south node at 4 degrees Capricorn. This is happening at 7:15 p.m. the 8th of March Universal Time. This is what we call as a cardinal T-square. What's happening is that the energy of Black Moon Lilith is becoming the focal point for the nodes. Now, the north node shows you where you actually need to go in terms of your spiritual journey. The south node tells you about what you don't really need to focus on so much. It's never about focusing on one and completely neglecting the other. It's about creating a healthy balance. If you think about the node as the head and the north node as the head and the south node as the tail, for the whole body to get there, you've kind of got to focus on where the node is going. The allegory of head and tail comes from the various cultural conceptions that see the north node, south node as the serpent's head, serpent's tail, or dragon's head, dragon's tail, respectively. You've got to lead with the head to get the whole body where you need to be. That's the general idea. Now, the purpose of the North Node in Cancer, as it is right now, is to take us to a deeper space of what is home, what is security, what is belonging, what does it mean to be emotionally anchored, and what do we need to let go of, what kinds of old structures of power, internalized hierarchy, and basically power dynamics that just simply do not serve. What do we actually need to let go of to find the true home and true family that we are looking for? Now, this is generally what the nodes are doing. But what's also happening at the same time is that Black Moon Lilith is kind of triggering both of these at the same time. And the way you journey with the nodes is determined by how you journey with Black Moon Lilith at this critical point. And this is quite an important alignment because this alignment will actually be triggered again later on by Chiron, and then towards the end of the month of March, you're actually going to be seeing Chiron, the Black Moon Lilith, conjunct the new moon in Aries, which will also be squaring the nodes. So the work you're doing around here actually has a significant impact in the weeks to come. Now, for those of you who feel very triggered with Black Moon Lilith, you are not alone. That is exactly what Black Moon Lilith challenges you about. It is about your perception of self. Do you see yourself as abuser, as aggressor, as victim, as rescuer, as avenger? What role do you see? How have you constructed your narrative, and is that actually who you are? Black Moon Lilith very often gets into, not by choice, but very often she gets into games of projection where she then reacts very, very badly of being negatively projected on or being projected on in a way that has got nothing to do with her. And that's where the shadow aspect of Aries comes out, where Aries can be very impulsive, very impetuous, just wants to go shoot forwards and not think about anything before it actually has a chance to breathe. That might not be the best choice. Whatever the circumstance is, take the time, feel into it, bring yourself back to your emotional home, whatever that is, wherever that is, before you choose to respond. There's going to be a lot of triggering this year with Black Moon Lilith in Aries, and the choices you make now will help to ease your passage further if you are able to remember this. Whatever the challenge is, let it help you find your way home in the most graceful way possible, whatever home is to you. On the same day, the 8th of March, 7:37 p.m. Universal Time, we see Venus conjunct Uranus at 4 degrees Taurus. This is lighting up the skies in a whole other way, and it's worthwhile pointing out that Venus conjunct Taurus is sextiled the mean node. It is also trining the mean south node in Capricorn. So this is actually something that is indirectly feeding into that Black Moon Lilith alignment as well, because it's all at the same degree, 4 degrees. If you have 4 degrees anywhere in your chart, it's going to be super lit. So with Venus conjunct Uranus, you're actually seeing this really big focus on Well, thinking about how do you embody yourself? How do you relate to your material reality? How do you make money? How do you feel supported? How do you define abundance? How do you feel rewarded in just being grateful, be in this body that you are in? How do you connect to the land? How do you connect to the earth around you? How do you express and experience all of this in tandem with a wider community of souls and beings? And how do collective efforts actually support you in what you want to do? So I guess it's no surprise that I'm sharing tier 23 right now. It fits in well with the astrology. It's when you get Venus conjunct Uranus, it's a wild card, because Uranus is like the energy of lightning. It can give life, it can also burn everything down. So, in terms of personal relationships and businesses, this is a day where you're likely to find some kind of a shock or some kind of a sudden awakening. Sometimes it's a rude surprise and you realize that something's not tenable, something's just got to go, or you realize that there's actually a gold mine to be found here, whether or not you're referring to it in a financial sense. A lot of this has to do with the work of the South Node in Capricorn, and that depends on what your karmic journey with it has been. So it's impossible to generalize. Sometimes what seems as a loss may actually be a blessing in disguise, so that you don't actually put your energy into dead-ended relationships or jobs that just don't work. Sometimes you may get an unexpected windfall, especially if you have something that's called the part of fortune at 4 degrees Taurus, Capricorn, or Virgo. Again, a very karmic point. So it depends on what your experience with this is and your journey with this point is. But effectively, this could even be like the energy of a lottery for some people. Maybe you didn't win $10 million, maybe you just won $5. It's that kind of an energy. It's a wild card, so treat it with respect. All of this is happening on International Women's Day, the 8th of March. By the way, happy Women's Day. And it's no surprise that Venus, of course, represents the relationship that we have with the feminine. And it's also really important to mention that the energy of the feminine is not just limited to women. It is in all forms, in all people, in all plants, in all animals, in this entire planet. It's important to note that the energy of femininity is not just held in one particular type of physical shape or form. And it is a disservice to the feminine to try and make those kind of very straight-jacketed binary associations, because if we look at the different forms of the feminine, we see that the femininity is defined by her fluidity rather than a lack thereof. So, just bear that in mind when we're having discussions surrounding femininity and its expression, and learn to see it in all things. There is feminine energy moving through a river, moving through a mountain, moving through a man, a woman, a child, moving through someone of a different gender, sexual identification, and orientation, even if they show themselves to be very, very masculine, so to speak. It's a lot more fluid. I remember writing an article a couple of years ago called God is Not in the Gonads, because really it's a very human perspective to try and divide divine expression into two characteristics on the basis of secondary sexual characteristics. It just doesn't make sense to me. If we were in a different body, we would think about this dichotomy very, very differently. So let's not limit the divine onto the basis of the human form. That is, I would say, certainly a form of human arrogance. So moving to the 9th of March, we then see Venus, as mentioned, sextiling the mean node at 4 degrees Cancer and trining the mean south node at 4 degrees Capricorn. The similar themes apply as the 8th of March. We really need to look at our relationships, our connection with embodiment, abundance, and wealth with more discernment. Look at what you are experiencing right now and what is in alignment and what is not. Are your business dealings, are your relationships actually helping you create a better sense of home and family and security, or are they taking you away from that? Now, in terms of those of you who are letting stuff go, remember that as painful as it is, that process of letting go may actually be what you need to then take the steps that you need to find some real emotional security in yourself, which I know can be a very, very painful experience. But when stuff like that happens during these kinds of alignments, there is usually a greater divine hand at play. On the same day, and this alignment goes exact at 9 a.m. On the same day, universal time at 5:47 p.m., we see the full moon with the sun at 19 degrees Pisces opposite the moon at 19 degrees Virgo. Now, this Virgo full moon is not going to feel like your usual Virgo full moon because it is directly opposite Neptune. So it's really this opposition between the Virgo full moon and the Sun and Neptune. And as you know, Virgo and Pisces are basically on opposite ends of the zodiac. They represent completely different energies, which, when merged, can create something very, very powerful. And indeed, you see this merger between the elements of earth and water, Virgo and Pisces, and in different alignments, especially with the Capricorn Pisces sextiles coming up, we see this need to actually look at spiritual work in terms not just in metaphysical and esoteric terms, but equally in how that spirituality translates into more concrete, material, focused, pragmatic habits, rituals, flows of income, physical maintenance of physical spaces, tools, teachings, herbs, whatever it comes down to for you. It's really about learning to find the right kind of physical vessel for the spiritual work that you are called to do. Now, for some of you, again, this is about creating something new. This is about finding a new path. This is about allowing your spiritual path to bring you to that sense of emergence with spirit. But for others, like myself, it's actually a time of dissolution because a particular form or version of the service has finished its course. In fact, if I think about it, I started all of this during a Virgo new moon, and it is no wonder that I am winding a particular chapter of my workup during a Virgo full moon opposite Neptune, at actually fairly close to where that new moon was. In terms of degrees and opposition and so on and so forth. But really, this is the kind of energy that asks us to walk in alignment with spirit. And sometimes that's creating something new. Sometimes that's letting go of a material, tool, form, whatever it is that's just not working anymore. This full moon is also quite powerful because it trines Mars in Capricorn at 15 degrees Capricorn, and it also trines Jupiter at 21 degrees Capricorn. So really, this energy is very, very, very heavily focused on the earth signs, even though it's got an opposition to Neptune. So this is an energy that says, okay, spirit, lead the way, show me what I need to create and build and what I ultimately need to let go of for my most organic, sustainable, and aligned expression of growth. That's what I would say this full moon in Virgo is about. Moving to the 10th of March at 3:48 a.m., we see Mercury stationing direct at 28 degrees Aquarius. A lot of you will be celebrating this because this Mercury retrograde has been very, very revealing. This is an energy which, sees the end of the retrograde as Mercury sort of, from a human perspective, again, Mercury appears to be a little bit groggy, taking its time to wake up till it actually moves past its shadow phase on March the 30th. So between now or rather between the 10th of March and March the 30th, we're really just moving through the lessons, the decisions, the realizations that we were working through with the Mercury retrograde. That's at this moment still ongoing, but very, very close to it, to its finish. Wednesday, the 11th of March, sees Chiron at 4 degrees Aries squared the mean north node at 4 degrees Cancer and the mean south node at 4 degrees Capricorn. This is happening at 5:01 a.m. Universal Time. So this is basically the alignment that we saw a few days prior with Black Moon Lilith. Now, the energy of Chiron is very much focused on the healing of self-perception, the healing of identity, the recognition of the role of the wounded healer in the construction of one's sense of selfhood and identity. Now, I would highly, highly recommend, and I mention this book often, please read Carolyn Miss's book on why people don't heal and how they can. And in it, she introduced this concept called woundology, which really, turns spirituality upside down, inside out for me, and in a good way. It actually taught me how to understand how some people actually use and cling on to that narrative of being victimized, of being wounded, of being hurt all of the time, so that they don't actually need to move out of it, it becomes a very dubious badge of honor. That doesn't mean to say that, these people have not been hurt, or that, that what they say happened to them hasn't happened to them. It's not to invalidate their experience. It is to say that sometimes people do not heal from their wounds because there is now a societal acceptance of valorizing the wounded and allowing them to sit in that bubble. So there is an extreme pole that one can take with this. One is to say that, oh, one is not truly wounded, they're making it up. And the other is to say that anyone talking about their wounds is in victim mentality. These are, poles, extreme poles, which do not exactly reflect a healthy relationship with spirituality. My cat agrees. What are you talking about, miss? You wanna talk on the camera? Okay, she's fine. But ultimately, this is the kind of energy that asks us to reassess and look at that narrative of being either the victim or the aggressor or the avenger or somewhere else related to the drama triangle. Ultimately, this is an energy that asks us to look at these narratives of selfhood and to see if it's really healthy for us and our deeper spiritual journeys. Remember that finding a sense of home, a sense of family, a community of belonging that is actually allowing you to emotionally heal from these wounds would be the goal, the ideal goal of the Chiron not node in not node in Cancer square. But remember that Chiron is also clashing with the South Node in Capricorn. You may actually find some kind of clashes with authority figures, elders, people you see as authorities, or your bosses, or even those who are older than you. You may see these kinds of clashes coming up. Now that you know it's coming, you can know how to manage these interactions to avoid unnecessary conflict and friction. At a health level, it's also a good time to look at the health of your head, basically anything above the neck. So if you have a headache on this day, I'm not saying rush to ER unless it's super serious, but just know that there will be a higher incidence of this for a lot of people around the 11th of March. On the same day, 12:26 in the afternoon, we see the Sun at 21 degrees Pisces, sextile Jupiter at 21 degrees Cancer. Whilst all of this stuff is going on with Chiron next to Black Moon Lilith squaring the nodes, we see a completely different energy with the Sun-Jupiter sextile. Again, this is where we are asked to commune with Spirit, to ask Spirit to show us what is the best way in which we can grow organically, sustainably, in a way that honors this material plane and our deeper spiritual existence. This is the prayer we need to be sending out for much of this month. The constant prayer for guidance from a pure source, because we need to understand, and this is where there's a lot of conflict when people try to put very capitalistic models of growth and presence and branding and whatever on spiritual work. It just does not work. It really does not work. Whatever you, especially if you are running a business that is surrounding a spiritual practice of some kind, it can't come from here. It's got to come from alignment. And what you feel within, what comes to you from source, what comes to you through your spiritual discipline and practice. Those of you who have alignments at 21 degrees Leo will experience this as a yod. A yod is also known as a finger of fate, finger of God, goddess, divinity, call it what you want, but it allows you to break through and to create, innovate new responses to this situation. So it's actually a good day for you to be expressing yourself through art therapy or things like that. That's the 11th of March. The 12th of March, we see Vesta at 27 degrees Taurus in conjunct the galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius at 11:08 p.m. Not too much I want to say on this in part 1, but long story short, an important time for everyone who walks a path of service, commitment, or duty to the land, to a particular material relationship, to some kind of financial contract, which is just about everybody, to look at how our duty of care and service with respect to the material world tallies with the larger principle, with the larger relationship we have with Spirit and the guides that lead us to Spirit. In other words, are we walking our talk? Is our path of service in alignment with the greater truth that we espouse, or is it not? So these are times where those questions become very, very, very important. And as you can see, or rather as you can hear, my cat agrees. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say about that. Those of you with alignments near 27 degrees Cancer will experience this as a yod or a finger of fate. And those of you with alignments near, let me just think for a sec, 27 degrees, yes, 27 degrees of Virgo will experience this as a yod or a finger of fate. It really depends on which way, even if you have both, you'll have a double yod. So again, 27 degrees Cancer or 27 degrees of Virgo. And that will lead you to very, very potent moments for those of you who are walking a path of facilitation or who see yourselves in that role, and in some way that applies to all of us. Friday, the 13th of March, technically speaking, nothing much going on the major astrological radar, but I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Eros conjuncts Nessus at 11 degrees Pisces, Mars in conjunct Stereos at 17 Leo, Mars at 17 Capricorn. This is really the kind of energy where we need to be a lot more mindful around dynamics of abuse, especially dynamics of abuse that have been hidden. Sometimes it's hidden from a person's own psyche, and it may come up in terms of suppressed memories and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's dynamics that have been kind of covered up due to what society says is acceptable or not acceptable to speak about. So this is really the kind of energy where those deeper dynamics of abuse may actually be bubbling to the surface. So around the 13th of March, you want to make sure that if you are in that position, take extra care, honor your narrative, get some help to make sure you are grounded, and that you have a safe space to handle the vulnerability that comes up with that kind of acknowledgement. And if you are dealing with someone who is going through that, you can afford to cut them some slack and handle them with a bit more gentleness than you normally would. You don't have to be hard all the time. There are some cases where really a gentle touch goes a far, far, far longer way than a hard line drawn in the sand. But sometimes that's the only thing you can do. Some people do take gentleness for granted. But either way, 13th of March, a lot of conversations surrounding different types of abuse are likely to emerge. The 14th of March, we see Mars at 18 degrees Capricorn, sextile Neptune at 18 degrees Pisces. If this sounds familiar, it's because we just talked about another Capricorn Pisces sextile. So here, Mars, the action planet in Capricorn, is saying, I want to build, I want to build, I want to create, I want to go, go, go. And Neptune is like, surrender, listen to the source, surrender. And when you bring both of the two together, that right balance of receptivity, the willingness to listen, and the gumption to act afterwards, we get a winning lottery ticket, so to speak. Basically, we get a winner. Now, for those of you, in fact, all of us are going to be experiencing this as a yod, because we're going to be all having this yod form between Mars 18 degrees Capricorn sextile Neptune 18 degrees Pisces, and both in conjunct Darius at 17 degrees Leo. Now, you're probably wondering, why does Darius keep coming up? And I am telling you, Darius is truly the astrological mover and shaker of 2020 hidden in the background. That's why I've been talking about Darius so much. And I do refer you to the podcast that I've just been doing with Amelia Fortes and Chris Flischer. The links are on my YouTube. Look it up if you don't know what this is. But effectively, this is where we can collectively create new expressions, create safe spaces, create spaces that acknowledge those who are vulnerable, who have been targeted. Doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter how long ago it happened. It's really about creating a society that is able and willing to hear the truth of what happened and to hold those who need to be held accountable. But that is specifically on the term of covert abuse. Now, this is not a time for people to go, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen. It is the time to say, okay, the risk of this is higher. Let's not take any undue or unnecessary physical risks, and let's just look at how we can keep our eyes open, not just for ourselves, but for the person next to us. Communal support can go a long way here. Also on the 14th of March, we see the Sun at 21 degrees Pisces, sextile Pluto at Sun at 24 degrees Pisces, sextile Pluto at 24 degrees Capricorn. Again, a potential yod at 24 degrees Leo. Very similar to the Capricorn Pisces sextiles that we're talking about. Effectively, it is about allowing deep spiritual wisdom and guidance to emerge in response to the reality of what it means to live in this embodied form. And Pluto is going to be bringing up the shadow. It's going to be bringing up the gunk. It's going to be bringing up all of the stuff that we want to hide away from ourselves. And allowing ourselves to face the shadow, to actually process it, is how we get to the true gold. And this gold comes in the form of the reignition and reactivation of the inner child body, of the body that is able to create joy, creativity, happiness, a reason for actually existing on this planet. March the 13th and March the 14th, pay extra attention to your kids. Listen to what they have to say. They may show you and everyone around them the way forwards. And doors, in that sense, may suddenly open. Finally, we look at March the 15th, where we see Uranus at 4 degrees Taurus, sextiling the mean node at 4 degrees Cancer, and trining the mean south node at 4 degrees Capricorn. We've already been seeing this energy kind of rumbling up when Venus hit this spot on the 8th of March and the 9th of March. So what's coming up here is really an extension of the themes of the week. What is leaving needs to leave. That is what will give you the space to build the home, community, sense of belonging that you need and that the planet needs. So whatever needs to go, let it go with as much grace as you can. That is the best advice that I can give you for this. For some of you who are actually going to be seeing windfalls, be it around work, be it around approaches to creating a legacy worth leaving behind, enjoy it. That's the karma that you have been rewarded with because you've clearly set the right seed at the right time, somewhere, somewhen, somehow. Enjoy it and go with it. Allow yourself to be inspired by the insight that is coming your way. So that's what I have to say about March 8th to the 15th. And like I said, this is part 1 of what you would regularly get in Tier 23. Part 2 goes into a lot more esoteric and spiritual detail. Still, I think this should be enough to tide you over. As a reminder, for those of you who need a much more simpler approach, join the limited tier program because that's just going to be the equivalent of a couple of bullet points and maybe 2 minutes of a video message. This is intense work, and you know the way I work. When I speak, something shifts, and it tends to be a good shift. And that's about it. So take care. Very many blessings. Lots of love to everyone, and I hope to see more of you joining the Tier 23 program. Ciao, ciao for now. Bye-bye.